Hello, beautiful people. So, this is part 4 of the full moon equinox series that I've been creating, um, which just happened totally spontaneously. I don't envisage a part 5. So, now I heard something really interesting this morning on the weekly Astrology Hub forecast, where she was talking about the full moon in Pisces and looking back over the moon in Pisces journey. So, the new moon in Pisces, the quarter moons in Pisces, and the full moons in Pisces. And she mentioned about the new moon in Pisces 2020, which of course was when our world changed. And I spoke the other day about looking back at the spring equinox of this year and looking forward to the spring equinox of next year. But I hadn't really taken into consideration looking back to the new moon in Pisces in 2020. Who were we then? Who were you? Who was I? Of course, fundamentally, we are the same person, but so many of us have been through the most incredible transformations since then. It's like we've dropped into almost like a new universe, a whole new way of understanding the world, a whole new understanding of energy, and of course part of that is because our planet has been going through a massive energy shift, depending on who you listen to, but according to even the scientists, if you measure the Schumann resonance of the planet, it's increased massively. Some people say we're going through a sort of photon belt. We've had a massive amount of increased solar activity, although that does happen from time to time, fairly often. So I think most of us would agree that we have been through a huge shift in the last 18 months. And it's always useful to look back to where we were as individuals and as a collective, and what to see how much we've grown. It's always a useful little exercise to do. However, this video, I particularly wanted to talk about the equinox, and it was the full moon in Pisces last night. The moon has now moved into Aries, so that Pisces Virgo axis is now moved on. I was very blessed to have the teeniest glimpse of the moon come through the trees last night while I sat here, and it was like just bathing, going wild swimming or just floating in the ocean, that beautiful experience of being in water, if you like being in water. So, the equinox. I have already spoken quite a bit about it in the previous 3 videos, and I don't really want to go over it. What I particularly want to look at today is the sign of Libra. And again, I have shared a couple of other videos with other astrologers' interpretations of Libra. Libra, most people who know anything about astrology, if you meet a Libra and you'll go, do you have a problem making decisions? Um, because Libra is the scales, yeah, and they're always weighing up the pros and cons of both sides. They can see both sides. And I've really been looking at this, and I did mention the other day that I was talking to my friend Heike, who is a Libra, and we were looking at this, about this expression of Libra, particularly in relationship to its opposition to the spring equinox, where we move into the zodiac with Aries, that initiating energy, but also the jump from Pisces to Aries. And an astrologer put it quite nicely yesterday. I tend to think of it as like a quantum leap, but she described it as like a vacuum, that when we get to the end of Pisces, there's like a vacuum is created, and the universe doesn't like a vacuum, so it will immediately draw something new into it, which is another really cool way of describing it. Now, so Libra is the 7th sign of the zodiac, so there's 12 signs. So basically from Aries all the way round to Libra, we've gone through half of the zodiac. And I'm doing it up because we tend, in the Northern Hemisphere, it's our spring and summer, and we tend to think of the sun as being high. And that process is a very individual process. It's very much about exploring me, myself, as an individual. Once we hit Libra, we meet the first sign of our relationships, if you like, because Libra is all about the relationship. It's about the comparing one to another. And so this is moving into a different level of consciousness. And if you think about it, traditionally, long dark evenings, people would be much more concentrated together in a small space. Everybody would be huddling around the fire to stay warm, and you'd have numerous people living together in a very small space. We don't tend to live like that nowadays. So this is like our natural instinct, is where we close in as a community in order to be safe, in order to stay warm, in order to share resources, in order to look after each other. And so there's a lot of storytelling would be told, a lot of conversations, a lot of building of relationships, and a lot of challenge in the relationships as well, and a lot of having to, sort things out. So, going back to the sign of Libra, when I talk to people about their Libra planets that are in the sign of Libra, I always describe it as like a seesaw, a seesaw like this. And in the middle we have this, what I call the fulcrum. In physical terms, it's called the fulcrum. And it's the bit where the seesaw pivots on, hinges on. And do you remember as a child, I used to do this as a child, you would stand across that point, and you'd have to, you'd be doing this to sort of balance the seesaw to get it to be balanced. And for me, this says a lot about the sign of Libra. So many Librans sit in so much anguish because they can't decide which side is the side to go with. They can't decide which side is the side, but it's because they're only seeing a duality. And this is like a really characteristic place that the whole world, or we, are finding ourselves in. You know, there's so much talk, isn't there, about division at the moment. And we do live in a world of duality, night and day, good and bad, black and white. It's how we learn, by comparing. But really, the energy of the universe is unity, it's oneness. We are all one energy. So I've been I don't have anything in Libra, nothing. In fact, if you know anything about astrology, my Libra and Aries houses have nothing in them, and they're intercepted, right? So they don't even have access to the environment. I do have Pluto in my house of Libra. So I'm very interested in the underlying consciousness of Libra. And I have a daughter who's very Libran, and I had a mother who was Aries and Libra. So the energy surrounds me, but within myself, I don't have any of that energy. So I'm very curious about it. And there was something. So I'll go back one step. So we've got this point where it's like this all the time. You know, this side the winners, that side the winners, this side the winner, and it's like this all the time. And in this perspective of duality. So my understanding has been for a while that we need to look at this central point. What is the point that brings together both sides? What is the point of unity that encompasses both sides? Because it's a bit like a coin. You know, if I gave you a coin, you'd see one image on one side and another image on the other side, but it's a coin. It's one coin. It just happens to have two different sides. So if we can move into that central place, that point in the middle that holds both sides, then we can move into a different experience. So yesterday, one of the astrologers I was listening to talked about, I think it was Anubis, the gatekeeper to the underworld or something. I'm not very good on my mythology. Where the scales represented, you had a feather in one side and the human heart in the other. And if the heart weighed more than the feather, that was it. You went down. Now, our logical minds, if we looked at a scales with a feather and a heart, we'd go, of course the heart's heavier. So I looked then, I thought, what did these ancient people, what were they asking us to consider in this visual analogy? And I thought, so they were asking us to consider that the heart could be the same weight as the feather. And so I put myself into that model, I put myself into that place where the heart and the feather were the same weight. And immediately I was no longer seeing them in the physical, material reality. I was seeing them in the energetic reality. And I suspect this might be what the ancients really wanted, what they were talking about, what they meant was about looking at the energetic reality. And then I was listening to my favourite astrologer on YouTube, Pam Gregory, and she was talking about moving our consciousness into a different realm. And I thought, aha, that's what it's about. So when we're always weighing things up on this scale, it's like we're very stuck in that material world, that material reality of what is solid and what we can see and what we can touch and feel. Yeah, sometimes people would call it the 3D reality. We're very stuck in that. But if we come to that central place and we can raise our awareness, raise our consciousness to a more unitive, lighter, energetic, 5D, whatever you want to call it, but we can raise our consciousness out of the material into a more energetic perspective, then we see the world in a completely different place. There is no right or wrong anymore, or good or bad or nothing. Everything just is an expression of consciousness. And wow, what a gift for Librans to have that facility to move into that central place of oneness, of balance, where everything is equal and everything just is, and seeing the world from an energy perspective rather than a material perspective. And so we're about to move into the first point of Libra. So it's on tomorrow evening, Wednesday, at something like 8 in the evening in the UK. And I invite you to just have a little play with it. Consider some things that are going on in your life where there's like an opposition, where you're like, I don't know how to resolve this opposition, this division. Consider, move into that place in the middle, even if you don't know what's there, because you probably don't know what's there, but just move into that place in the middle where you see the whole and you can rise to a more energetic understanding of what is going on, rather than trying to figure it out at the material level, because this is the movement of awareness that is required for us as a planet, as a species, to evolve, to transcend the difficulties that we are finding ourselves in now, the material difficulties that we are stuck in. This is the transition that we need to make as individuals and as a collective. And the more of us that practice it, the quicker we're all going to go. Okay, so you might be saying to yourself, but I don't know how to find that place in the middle. Which brings in a lot of what else I've been talking about recently, about following our joy, following what we love. But it's also very much about following what resonates with our truth. And I was listening to a guy, yes, I listen to a lot of people. I was listening to a guy last night, and I was reminded of something that I'd forgotten about. That when we're looking to create something new, and hey boy, are we looking to create something new on this planet, we have to move into the magical realm, okay? We have to, whatever you call that, whether you call that the imagination or the liminal space or a higher consciousness. Einstein said that he never came up with anything new from thinking about it. He always had to move into that magical space, or that, whatever you want to call it, the imagination. He had to move into that space to get new information. Now, one way to move into that space is to follow your joy, is to follow your bliss, is to follow what you truly love and what really resonates with you. because that raises our vibration. It takes us to a more expanded place. We feel happier. We the universe feels like a more beautiful place. And so when we're in that level of consciousness, we're much more likely to get these downloads, this information that brings in everything that we're wanting to encompass. Yeah, we often find like solutions that we go, oh wow, actually that matches both sides. That actually brings everything together. Or we'll find a solution that sits in the middle that again encompasses both sides. And a lot of that is to do with our values. What do I value? Because if we always make our decisions based on our values, then we will be maneuvering ourselves all the time into the most coherent place, into our place of power, into our place of where things feel in alignment, where we feel consistent. There's a word I'm looking for, but it's disappeared. And what is so interesting about Libra is that it's ruled by Venus. And it's the aspect of Venus that sees beauty. It's the aspect of Venus that wants everything to be beautiful and harmonious. So when we follow our joy, we follow our love, we follow what we love, or we follow what feels our truth, or even when we follow what we see as most beautiful, it naturally takes us down that middle route. And what is like even another little tweak on that interesting is I believe that takes us through the very tiny little window of self-love, which takes us out into the broader expansion of Neptune. And hey, have we got Neptune around at the moment. That full moon was a moon Neptune in alignment with each other, and I've already spoken about the Neptune Jupiter Venus moon alignment that we have going on in Pisces at the end of April next year. The more we can move into that expanded consciousness and sense of oneness and bliss and joy, compassion, peace, all those very high transcendent states, the more we can be in that. And nobody's going to be there all the time. You know, if you get a fleeting moment of it, you're lucky. Okay, that's good. Okay, I call them golden nuggets, when you just go, oh, wow, I felt that. That was a moment. Yeah? Very few of us can stay there because our mind just goes in, oh, what was that? So, but the more we can have those experiences, then the more we bring that down into material reality, the more we create from that place in our lives, the more we can manifest it. And that is really bringing the spiritual into the material, which is what Capricorn is all about. And Pluto, that great transformer, the will of God. Pluto is in the last few degrees of Capricorn and will be out of Capricorn in 3 years. And the more that we can manifest that imaginal world, or as Pam Gregory calls it, the plasma, the more we can bring that into physical manifestation, the more that we are working with the very highest vibration of Pluto in Capricorn, and it will counteract the very low vibrations of Pluto in Capricorn that are still reeling and rocking the 3D world. Okay? Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about this stuff, because it's as I'm sharing it with you that I'm often sort of like making sense of things myself. It's like I'll have an idea, but as I speak it, so it sort of becomes a picture, it becomes a pattern, and I can see it. Enjoy your equinox. Blessed be.